Everybody, welcome back. It's December 31st, 2022, and well, Happy New Year. As you can tell in this last video that I'm making for this year, and probably for this channel, the way that I look is slightly different than it was even just maybe a year ago. And on this channel, I talk about wealth and how we all share and participate in wealth building, and how family and friends are absolutely a part of this process. And on this channel, I always use circumstances that really happened to me. And I talk a lot even about what just happened there. You could hear I got a little choked up about it. And those little gestures and synchronicities have a lot to do with the conversation that we're having right here, right now. So I recently, towards the end of this video segment, made several videos that were talking about paying attention to details. Now, if I were sitting here telling you that someone yelled at me, was punching my arm as I was trying to hold them from jumping out of my moving vehicle, you can take that a number of ways. You know, maybe I was trying to transport someone who didn't want to be transported. So in my particular case, I had a direct experience with family members who did unusual things just like this. They attempted to jump from a moving vehicle. When I held them for their safety, they punched me. And nothing was really said about it. I guess I deserved it. If for some reason it wasn't me, some 46-year-old guy who looks pretty rough and rugged who was telling this story, if it was some 46-year-old girl who was sitting here telling this story, and some older man had punched them after, trying to cause a circumstance where they either leapt from a moving vehicle or where they were having such an argument that it was causing the driver distraction navigating from point A to point B, you might view what I'm saying differently. In the meantime, not too long ago, I got into a discussion about this very circumstance where I was trying to ask for assistance with furthering the communication among someone who had the opportunity to have a better conversation this year itself. You see, for several years now, I've had such difficulty having a direct conversation with my direct family members, to the point where we're sitting there thinking that we're unable to ever resolve these matters. And when I say we, I'm just saying that, just including everyone possible as a formality, while also communicating here, not just in private. This is a public conversation that has been carried on across many channels. So not just in private, but this year and for several years, I've been having this conversation in public. And as you can see, I've got this meager, humble channel where we talk about these circumstances as a family, even if we have never met each other. For many of us, we feel like we know each other the moment we tell our stories and the moment we share our emotions. And we know that because, well, truth seeks truth, everything finds its level. And so when we're going about things in a chaotic way, addicted to, I'll call it anger, that's the spirit that I most often encounter in my life, where I can recognize the same kind as me. I come into contact with a lot of angry people. And some people can leverage their anger and dole it out even in the sadistic comments that they make when, quote unquote, complimenting one another. I remember that one of my acquaintances used to always comment on how I would sing. Many acquaintances have constantly commented on all kinds of different circumstances that have nothing to do with the story that I'm talking about here, addiction. So if you're recognizing that we're having a conversation suddenly and it's been almost seemingly one way in terms of the communication, you might want to also accept responsibility as to why that might actually be occurring. So during this holiday season, I prepared by rehearsing all of these stories that I had. Great stories to me. The only thing was that there was no one sitting there encouraging me and smiling, and saying, yeah, I want to hear that story again. That's a pretty good story. How did you overcome that? How did you overcome that? You have to listen to the song about when I met with the devil. And you've got to hear the song about me trying to tell someone how I feel and how the response might have felt quite unreal. And you might have heard how I questioned myself, does anyone hear me anyway? All of these things are just basic thoughts. And so as we move into this next year, and as we continue to think about talking about the principle of voting, for an example, and not necessarily recognizing the responsibility of voting with those other daily actions that have to do with wealth building and health building, maybe when we can concentrate for just long enough to realize these things, then we might stop trying to outsmart one another with what we perceive as actual intelligence. And we might want to just look at what it is to find our level and have a meaningful relationship again. Not just by texting and trying to figure out which emoji means what, or by saying, we're not going to do this now because of this situation. We don't want it to be misinterpreted. We need to start learning to do what's in our heart. But we also have to know, is it really our heart that's beckoning for us to do what it is that we're doing? Because when we do things with our heart, with nurturing, with gratitude, that nourishes whatever we're putting our efforts into. If we're putting our efforts into things that are causing destruction and chaos and division, well, we might be getting misled. Just a thought. No matter how we hear what it is that's being talked about here, whether we sing a new tune on our own or because someone else helped to show us how to do it, I hope that for this upcoming year and all of the years that we've experienced and will have experienced when it's all said and done, that we continue to do everything we can to repair what's around us and to safeguard what we can safeguard. Because in case you haven't noticed, times are quite challenging for all sorts of reasons, for all sorts of demographics, for all sorts of species, and for all sorts of reasons that are mostly because we continue to look up to our fathers and not think of any kind of possibility to do something new even with the things that we have right now that seem so challenging to work with. And part of the resolution that I would like to make for this new year is to continue to invite people to have a conversation with one another, especially where it's been outstanding for a long time, and to be humble enough to ask why it is that we perceive the other person might be upset with us. Because otherwise, we're just kind of guessing. We're guessing at why someone else might be upset with us. We're guessing. And the worst part is that the more we go without talking with one another, the longer we simply allow more incorrect information to build up those walls that are around us. It's not very difficult to see the pattern once we really start looking into it. It's not really anything other than basic addiction. Anything we do that entertains our thoughts and efforts away from building positive, joyful, happy connections, it's the opposite. And in a lot of cases, we can be sold on the opposite pretty easily because entertainment, how we choose to entertain ourselves and how we choose to support one another is basically our real life. It's our real subscription. If we wouldn't look once or twice or ever at someone standing in the rain, looking for shelter, if we wouldn't stop for the person at the roadside who looked dirty and unrested, if we wouldn't stop, then why are we celebrating these holidays that are centered around remembering the reasons for the season? Why are we celebrating any of that? And so really, I believe when people are angry, it's because there's definitely some quote unquote shadow work that needs to occur. There's definitely an ego versus spirit that's going on. And some people just don't want to admit it. So as we go into this next year, let's also resolve to calling out however you decide to interpret that. Till next time, actually it still works. Like I say, I'm not going to post anything else here, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't stay tuned. So till next time, stay tuned.